What we concluded is the government hasn't purchased credible offsets, so it hasn't achieved its objective of being a carbon neutral government.
Back when Gordon Campbell got religion on climate change 6 years ago, he thought BC could become a world leader in cutting greenhouse gas emissions. So he set up the first carbon tax in North America and something called the Pacific Carbon Trust, meant to buy offsets for public buildings like schools and hospitals. But a damning new audit finds that scheme just isn't working.
The money that the Pacific Carbon Trust spent on these two projects, which was $6 million, was spent without any added environmental benefits actually being achieved. These projects would have happened anyway.
The Pacific Carbon Trust has been wasting millions of taxpayer dollars for years, $50 million over the last 3 years, taking money out of hospital rooms, out of classrooms, and putting it into the pockets of some of the biggest polluters in British Columbia.
The model where you take scarce resources that could go to greening public buildings and give them to some of the biggest polluters in the province of BC is one that just doesn't have public support anymore.
But the Liberal government and some other critics say the Auditor General simply doesn't know what he's talking about.
Well, I think it's important that the Auditor General have credibility, of course, in terms of the expertise he brings to the table. In this particular instance, his team did not have the same level of expertise as the organizations that verified these offsets.
He and his staff are largely accountants. They know how to balance books. They know how to look at costs and benefits. What they don't know anything about are things like education, child protection, and greenhouse gas reduction.
As a lifelong Canuck fan, I've learned it never pays to argue with the referee. And that's what the Liberal government is doing with the Auditor General. The Auditor General is independent. The public is more akin to take their side on an issue than the government's. The government should recognize that and follow the Auditor General's recommendations.
Now, part of the problem is carbon trading is so new and so complicated, it's not clear if it even helps fight climate change.
I think that the trading of offsets can be part of a comprehensive plan to deal with climate change. My personal opinion is that we should have a broadly based carbon tax as our first implementation, and offsets should come way down the line.
There is a distinction between a carbon offset project that is real, that is going to reduce carbon emissions, and a project that, quite frankly, either existed before, would exist today, or will exist tomorrow without any government help whatsoever.
Maybe if some other states and provinces were involved, this whole carbon trading thing would work. But right now, the Pacific Carbon Trust is nothing but a slush fund. It takes public money, gives it to private companies, many of whom are Liberal donors. I say the best thing to do is to shut it down. For This Week in BC, I'm Sean Leslie.